All right, David Elliot. Good morning. Welcome to the Jason Wright Show, and Happy New Year, man.
Good morning. Happy New Year. Thanks so much for having me.
I guess it's yeah, my pleasure, dude. Thanks for making the time. I guess it's still, I feel like as long as it's still January, we can say Happy New Year. And I
Yeah.
haven't, and you and I are just meeting, so I feel like it's still we can still say Happy New Year and get away with it. I'm
You
sure Larry David would have a problem with it, but I'm sorry, he's grumpy about everything.
you can sneak it under the wire for one more week here.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So all right, so I want to tell you why I reached out to you, David. So I watch your content on Instagram. I am someone who's kind of envious of what you're doing in that I love clothes. I love men's fashion. And but as a I don't have really an outlet for it. In fact, I work out of my house most of the time. And I went through this phase over the last few years where essentially it drove my wife crazy because she loves to dress me. She loves to buy me cool clothes. And she's been in fashion pretty much her whole career. And I went through this phase, dude, where I was just like black t-shirt and jeans. That's it. I went through the phase where I'm only wearing black and I still love black, but I'm kind of, as you can see, I've got this bold, it's the Ralph Lauren sweater for winter sweater for the year. I try to get one every year. And that's where it always comes back to for me is I always go back to preppy style or Ralph. I love
Yeah.
just that kind of traditional. And your look is so cool because I mean, I think that most of the content that you put out, everything is very timeless. You do a lot of neutral stuff, and that's why I wanted to bring you on because one of the things I'm going to tell the dudes out there, you might get a little bit upset with me, but I'm going to tell you, a lot of you dudes are just doing it wrong, and I cannot stand seeing guys just not even putting any effort in, or the effort they put in is in vain, and they still look bad. You are proof that pretty much anyone on any budget can really look nice, dude. Because that's another thing. You're not out there with Loro Piana and Bruno Cucinelli and all this stuff. No, you're wearing approachable clothing that fits in any category, any season, and so I just thought, why not? The motto of the Jason Wright Show is to improve always and always. And now that I'm kind of
Mhm.
breaking out of my all black phase, I'm like, why not talk about improving men's style and their wardrobe? So if you're here for it, dude, let's that's what I want to cover.
Let's do it. Yeah, you got me feeling a little insecure. I got one of my like trademark simple outfits on. You're rolling in this like incredible Ralph Lauren sweater, but yeah, that's you kind of nailed what I like to be about or what I've kind of positioned as far as what the mo of my Instagram page is just keeping it simple. I think that I live in a place that is in the Northwest United States. It's not a fashion capital of the world by any means, and so the majority of what I'm doing is trying to help out guys who live in places like I do, where they just show up every day in a hoodie, jeans, running shoes, maybe throw on their puffer jacket in the middle of winter and put in very little effort. And I think that a little bit of effort goes a really long ways in the way that you present yourself to the world, in the way that you show up for for your partner, whatever that looks like. It really makes a big difference. And I think that I've seen over the years guys just also starting to feel that for themselves. They maybe start for a variety of different reasons of like, I want to, get a girlfriend or I want to, get a promotion at work or things like that. And quickly over time, they realize, man, this makes me feel good about me as well. And so I think it's a huge step in the right direction. Even if you can start with those little actionable steps that may seem really simple. And then maybe eventually you've got a great sweater on like you do because you found a passion in it that goes beyond just a good fitting black t shirt.
I love that, dude. And yeah, so my wife even kind of, I mean, she bought me this sweater, but it was only at my telling her, hey, this is one of the things I want for Christmas is like the bold, classic looking Ralph sweater. But I'm in Tyler, Texas, dude. There's not many of these rolling
Yeah.
around. They're
Yeah.
only and like I'm an old school Ralph Lauren fan from back whenever I was growing up and I couldn't afford to wear any Ralph Lauren. I had buddies that had polos. I could never have them. I don't know if you ever knew this brand. There was this brand called Knights of the Round Table that you could buy at department stores. And it
Okay.
was like it's kind of like Beverly Hills Polo Club. Like it had the polo guy, but it wasn't. It was like the flag was waving. And I remember whenever I went off to college and anybody that would wear a Knights of the Round Table polo instead of a Ralph Lauren polo, we'd be like, oh, dude, I don't know. That flag was waving. I was a little kid that grew up with the flag waving. I couldn't afford Ralph
Totally.
Lauren polos. And so I think that you said something there that's really cool is that you don't have to do a lot to really look good. And that's one of the things I love about your style, man. I mean, like today, I mean, for the folks that aren't watching this on the YouTube channel, I mean, David's got on, totally neutral colors, monochromatic, which I totally dig. I love the monochromatic look, even though I'm completely opposite of that today. Um, and so I thought, let's start there because I think that's one of the things that you do well. A lot of people will see someone in one of your outfits like you're wearing, and they'll be like, "That looks amazing," and they can't tell you why. Yeah, I
Mm.
think that's the thing, and, people try so hard to really up their style and go nuts, and it's like, who was it? It was, I guess it was, Lagerfeld or one of them that said, "Simplicity is the height of elegance," or whatever, and
Mm.
I think that's what you kind of exhibit. So, for this audience, for the dudes out there that are kinda clueless, or they're still doing something awful like wearing, I mean, I guess they kind of brought the cargo pants back, but there's some modern versions of the cargo pants. But they're still rocking, a plaid shirt tucked into some cargo shorts with a braided leather belt. They just don't understand what they're doing. What are some basic rules that you follow for fashion whenever you're trying to put together a wardrobe that works 7 days a week? What are just some of those things that you do that would work for any dude?
Totally. I think the number one most important thing from that context is going to be fit. Like you said, when I'm picturing, a polo shirt tucked into a big pair of cargo shorts with a braided belt, none of that is I'm picturing fitting the body particularly well. The shorts are probably 4 inches too long, and the shirt is, a little snug around the belly or whatever that looks like. And so I think that pretty much anything can look pretty good if you're just wearing the right size. And unfortunately, there's not necessarily a one size fits all for that. There are guys who you'll see walking around wearing a size too small, a size too big, maybe the right size, but that style just doesn't suit their body properly. And so there is a little bit of trial and error that comes with that. But I do think that if you look at fashion, obviously it's fairly cyclical. There's going to be ebbs and flows as far as what the preferred fit is, things like that. And I do think that obviously Ralph Lauren is a perfect example of someone who has always kind of towed that middle line of never going too far one direction or the other. And I think that that tends to be a really good option for most guys. If you're, 5 years ago, it was, hey, everybody get these skin tight skinny jeans. And I don't know that that was ever the best look for anybody, but a lot of guys really gravitated towards that. And then now a lot of the style is going really loose and really baggy. And for the most part, I think if you had stayed on that middle line of a nice straight fit that isn't too tight and isn't too loose, you'd never look back and be like, man, I looked really stupid wearing that. And I think that's kind of one of my motivations, is that I'm picking items and picking pieces that I think I'll look back on in 10 years and be still proud of what I was wearing, or at least not like, oh, I'm embarrassed. And I do think some of that comes with age. I think that when I was, 15, there were things that I thought were really cool as a 15-year-old that maybe as a 30-year-old I wouldn't be quite as excited about. I hope that when I'm 40 or 45, I'll look back at when I was 30 and be like, oh, I was at least like a somewhat fully formed man. And I could kind of understand the things that I was choosing to where I won't have any of those major regrets per se. But I think towing that middle line a little bit, and there is always going to be a slight risk, which I think people have called me out on, of being slightly boring, which is okay. And I think that a lot of the times, unless you really have a reason to, or if you're really into style, being a slightly boring dresser is going to be all right. People are always going to think you look sharp, you look good, but you're not necessarily making a huge statement with every outfit that you're choosing to wear. And then if you do want to make a statement, maybe it's New Year's Eve and you want to wear a velvet blazer or tuxedo or whatever it is. There are moments in time as you just get more comfortable with style, as you start to develop your own personal style, to push those boundaries and to have a little bit more fun with what you're wearing. But especially if you're going from cargo shorts, polo, braided belt to just trying to look a little bit more presentable alongside your wife or girlfriend, I think that those small incremental steps into just something neutral that fits well is always going to be a great first step.
One of the things you said right there at the beginning is something that I have, and now let me back up. When I was in undergrad, I worked at an old school men's department store. I mean, where
Okay.
we actually had to size guys for suits, and we didn't do it. We didn't have a custom shirt or suit program, but we sold like Hickey Freeman and all the Heart Marks brands. That was as high as we had the Heart Marks Gold Trumpeter. So they were decent, upper middle class business guy
Yeah.
suits, and And so I learned, the difference between, a half-inch cuff, a 2-inch cuff, and showing a quarter-inch linen in the sleeve. I got to learn all these things from Mike Bay, who was my dressing mentor. Mike,
Hmm.
if you're out there and you listen to the Jason Wright Show, thank you, sir. You taught me well. And one of the things I learned from that was you could take a person, and to the guys listening out there, uh, I want to echo what David said, is that, like, if you have something that fits well, it will compensate for your dad bod. For
Totally.
example, I tell you, like, I don't know, I never watch the show regularly, but 30 Rock from the Sun, Alec Baldwin to me is somebody who exemplifies this in spades. Alec Baldwin is built like Fred Flintstone. I mean, he's fat, he's puffy, he's stubby, but he always looks great in a suit.
Yeah,
And I guarantee you, a lot of people out there, if they even think about it at all, they're not weird like me, probably don't really think about things like this. But if you do, and you wonder, how does Alec Baldwin, who's a kind of a chunky, husky dude, always look good in a suit? Well, it's because the suit is cut perfectly to fit him. And it makes such a difference. And also, David, would you agree that for those dudes out there that just aren't going to be able to, either one, they're not going to make the investment, or two, they don't have the margin to do this right now, to go buy a custom made suit, having this a little bit of tailoring done goes a long
totally.
way, no?
Totally. Yep. I think, even something that you wouldn't think of as like a tailored garment, like a pair of jeans,
Mm.
that are just like puddling up at the bottom because they're 2 inches too long. Obviously the bare minimum is like just cuff the jeans a little bit, and that can make a big difference. But taking them to a tailor who knows what they're doing, even just bringing those jeans up by 2 inches, all of a sudden it looks like, oh, you didn't like grab a pair of your dad's jeans and throw them on and they're too big. You bought a pair of jeans that fits your body properly, and it just shows that little extra level of intention. You mentioned a suit, and I don't know if you follow Derek Guy. His Dye Workwear is his page
Yeah.
on Twitter, and he is a genius, and he has so many different things that he talks about. But one of the things that he talks about a lot is that we have lost that the beauty of like the suit. And I do, I only have one suit. It was from our wedding. It's just not something that I incorporate a lot, like I said, in my more casual place that we live. But there are the I will say casual clothing is a little bit harder to hide some of those insecurities or those areas, because the suit has, five different layers of cloth, and they're all made to drape properly and do different things. And so we have lost a little bit of that in the way that we have made everything a little bit more casual. But within that, there's still an opportunity, I think, in your day-to-day casual clothing to make sure that it fits properly. And it may not have the same, V effect that the suit would, but it at least is going to look like you were intentional, and that you picked out clothes that were specifically for you and not just whatever you found.
Absolutely. And one of the things though too, that, again, going back to what you're talking about with your style being a little more casual, but kind of monochromatic, you're not being real bold with a bunch of God forbid, logos and stuff like that. But you when you have nicer things that you're wearing like that, and you're wearing them well, then you don't have to dress so formal to still make yourself appropriate for the office, right? I
Totally.
mean, that's that to me, like what you're wearing today, I could totally see you showing up in a modern day office building. And again, for those of you not watching on the channel, David's rocking like a t-shirt, just a crew neck tee. Looks like you got an overshirt there, and can't see your pants, but I can assume there are probably some khakis or even some denim or something like that. It's very basic, but you could totally roll up in most offices these days.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the dress code as a whole has changed so much, and even within this, like I love the idea of buying clothes that maybe translate across your casual wardrobe into that more, new business casual. A true like menswear guy would get mad at me for calling it business casual, but at the end of the day, that's what it has shifted to, is business super casual for a lot of places. And so
Mhm.
I'm not today, ironically, but probably 8 days out of 10, I'm wearing some sort of piece of knitwear, and like a sweater is one of those first just ground level basic items that every guy switching from just a plain colored crew neck sweatshirt into a plain colored crew neck sweater is a huge upgrade. And that immediately takes it from, oh man, you're wearing like a sweatshirt, a hoodie, whatever, to you could literally throw this on with a pair of khakis, with a pair of different colored chinos, and maybe a loafer, or even just like a minimal sneaker or something like that. And you're immediately ready for the office in the year 2025. And again, you're not going to probably win any menswear awards. You're not probably going to be walking down the runway, but also nobody's going to look at you and be like, man, that guy looks sloppy at the office today.
Well, and another thing you can do that I love about that, you did a video not too long ago where, man, I think you had, I remember how many outfits you made out of like, just a few pieces, but multiple outfits. So talk a little bit about that to the dude out there that again says, look, I'm not, I'm spending my money on DraftKings and playing golf. I'm not going to spend my money on clothes. So Jason and David, I'll go ahead and I'll go splurge for a five pieces, of clothing, but I want to know that I can get multiple outfits out of those. So for the guy out there that's not creative and doesn't want to go buy a ton of clothes, don't want to have to buy five outfits, how do you start and what kind of building the foundation for taking a few core pieces and then wearing them differently for different settings to get the most outfits out of just a few pieces? How do you think through that, David?
Yeah, that's definitely one of the video concepts that I've done a lot of because I do think it's such a valuable tool. A variety of different ways. Maybe it's 10 outfits with just five pieces, or even one that I did maybe 6 months ago was spending $300 to be better dressed than 80% of guys out there. And so I do think there is this misconception that spending a lot of money is what's required to look good. And there is a component of that ultimately. Like guys who look really, really good, a lot of the times it's more of a hobby. They spend a lot of their time and extra income on clothing, just like DraftKings or golf for some other guys. But I do think that the idea of like a capsule wardrobe is something that I use a lot for other guys, for myself, especially when we're traveling or going on trips. Just picking a few really good pieces that go well with others that then you can mix and match. And I think it makes the age old adage was like Mark Zuckerberg when he used to have like one hoodie or five different colors and one t-shirt and five different colors and one pair, and I think that's the super simplified, I'm way too smart and whatever to take 5 minutes to pick an outfit version of this. But there are some good principles in that of if you have pieces that you like that fit you well in nice neutral colors, then you really can't go wrong in the morning when you're getting dressed. And so, I think it does kind of depend on what do you do for work, where do you live, all of those kinds of things. But and so there may be a component of picking a few casual items, a few more elevated items, but ultimately I feel like that 5 level base is probably a really good pair of dark jeans because that's something that you can wear in a casual environment. That's something you can probably wear to the office as well. A really good white t-shirt because that is going to go underneath your knitwear. You can wear it on your own, all of those kinds of things. Again, a piece of knitwear, maybe it's another neutral color. I really like a cream sweater. I think that is literally one of the most versatile items that you can possibly own. And then some sort of outerwear. Maybe it's a light shirt jacket like this. If you live somewhere that tends to be a little bit warmer throughout the year, this is just like a cotton twill shirt jacket. It could go over the top of the sweater when it's a little cooler. It could go over the top of the t-shirt when it's a little bit warmer. And then maybe you do throw in something a little bit more fun in there as well as a bit of a statement piece within that too. Maybe it's a pair of shorts if you live somewhere warm. All of those different things. But if you pick kind of like you have mentioned those neutral color palettes, the pieces will all go together. And then you may only need to have 5 things that you can wear on a really regular basis. Obviously, to some degree, you're going to want some variety. So you're not wearing the same pair of jeans to work every single day but I do think that if you're like, man, I don't want to spend a ton of money, but I need to upgrade my style quickly, picking just 4 or 5 of those neutral pieces to start and honestly investing maybe some, or you don't have to. You could spend a couple $100 here or there total to get some of those pieces. And then you can work them in together and create a variety of different looks.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing too, that again, going back to, and maybe we should have titled this somehow like frugal fashion or something like that. I don't know, but for those guys that don't want to spend a ton of money, if you'll just take David's advice on don't want to spend a ton of money, if it means going and finding a tailor, and this is a thing too,
Sure.
seamstress, they don't even know the seamstress exists. Folks, go look in your phone book. You can find somebody. I have probably one of the last true upscale men's store right here in Tyler, Texas. It's Harley's.
Mm.
It's a local institution. I mean, dude, Harley Hooper is like the living version of Stanley Marcus, David. I mean, he is old school, elegant. I mean, it is the now it's not cheap. It's not for the bargain shopper. I
Sure.
mean, he has blazers that are $4,000. I mean, they're just
Sure.
he does all of his shopping in Italy, New York, and all over. It's truly unbelievable. It's a beautiful
So
experience.
cool.
So I go and I will get like what you mentioned, the jeans being too long. So I have this my inseam is like really weird. I have to buy a 32 inseam, which sometimes will be too short, sometimes will be too long. It just depends on, where I'm getting stuff if it's off the rack. And so I just took like 4 or 5 pair of, casual pants into Harley for like I think $14 a pair to
Yeah.
have them just, shortened a little bit. Had a cuff put in one because there was enough fabric. And folks, listen to me. They look like they're $300 slacks versus what I paid for them from like John Hendrick. I've got into John Hendrick. I don't know if you ever
Yeah,
paid
yeah.
attention to that brand, just a good middle of the road. I think they're like Swedish or something. They're some
Totally. Yep.
Nordic brand. So nothing really crazy. They look amazing now. I mean, they
Yeah,
totally for 15 extra dollars, now it looks like I'm wearing something that you'd see on an episode of Succession. And
totally.
so folks, go find that. And then another thing too, like you're saying, with the having those basics, lined out and wearing kind of the same theme all the time, then you will kind of and again, I know a lot of guys, that's why I wanted to bring this to the show, man. A lot of guys don't think about this, but what you wear says so much about you.
Mhm.
If you have that capsule where people can at least expect, like I can always expect what I'm going to see you wearing, David. I
Mhm.
know it's going to be kind of the kind of style it's going to be. So that you and now it's part of that overall brand and image. Now, granted, that's your business, but for everyone out there, we're all now more than ever
Yeah.
building our own brand and image. And once you settle into that, it feels good. You feel comfortable, and it kind of is a reflection of what's on the inside. And I know that's may be a little bit too philosophical for some dudes, but
No,
I'm telling you, you can do that, and it makes such a difference.
mhm.
So now I mentioned John Hendrick as a brand that I've just recently discovered as kind of that middle of the road, not too hot, and it's kind of that Goldilocks brand for everyday wear. What are some of the brands that this audience could go to check out that you have found are they match good price, good quality, and timeless style? Because that's another thing I am a believer in now, and especially
Yeah.
I'm a lot older than you. I mean, I turn 50 next month, and I want to talk to you about that because we're going to Europe, and I know you just got back from London.
Oh,
I want to hear about
yeah.
your trip, and I want to talk about preparing for that trip. But one of the things that I'm doing now is I'm trying to buy only pieces that I plan to keep forever. So that
Yeah,
in and of itself, kind of limits and kind of categorizes,
totally.
the style I'm going to shop, the brands I'm going to shop. But what are some of those brands that you have found are just like, man, year after year, I get something, it's going to last, it didn't break the bank, and I'm always going to be able to work it in. What are some of your favorites?
Yeah. It's a tricky question because there has been an unfortunate shift. Like, there's a conversation that I've seen a lot of people having around finding their parents' clothes up in the attic somewhere or whatever, and they're from the '90s, and they still feel better than a lot of what we can buy now. And at the end of the day, a lot of the production and all of that has just gone downhill. It's changed, and there are even places that have there's ways to make clothing that have kind of started to become lost because people aren't doing them anymore. Things get a little bit more expensive, and so ultimately you do have to kind of make this decision as far as a value proposition goes. What is it worth to me to buy something that maybe is going to last a long time? And even 10 years ago you might have been able to spend $50 on a shirt jacket that was going to last you for a decade, and that same jacket might cost $150 now, which our obviously spending power hasn't increased at the same rate. And so you do have to make those decisions. I think that this probably is a bit of a departure from what we were talking about earlier with doing something on an affordable basis. But obviously, there's this idea of like cost per wear. And what does affordable actually mean? If you spend $30 on a shirt and you wear it one time and then it gets crumpled up in the back of your closet and you never wear it again, that ultimately wasn't that affordable. Whereas if you spend $150 on a shirt that you're going to wear 50 times, that was, while the upfront investment was a little bit more, that was a much more affordable purchase per se. And so the idea, I think, does come down to what are your desires with your clothing? Are you going to be a person that's kind of hopping from trend to trend and trying the brand new thing every season? Or are you going to be building more of a timeless wardrobe? Some of that comes with what does your body composition look like at the moment? Are you like going to roughly be the same, size and height and weight that you are right now for the next 10 years? There's all these different factors that play into that. Um, the other thing that I just wanted to touch on is learning how to be a bit of a smarter shopper, because ultimately you could buy something from Gucci that has the big fat logo across the front that A, probably isn't going to be quite as timeless, but B, might be made of 50% polyester and 50% cotton that's going to pill and fall apart, but it still costs $300 because it was from Gucci. Or I've bought a 100% cotton sweater from Old Navy that has lasted me for a really long time. And so really learning to shop those labels as much as you are the brand is super important to the longevity of your clothing. Obviously, at the end of the day, 100% cotton Old Navy sweater isn't going to be probably as high quality as a 100% cotton Ralph Lauren sweater. And so you do always have to factor all of those things in, but it is a big component of that is just being a smart shopper wherever you are. Like you said, I prefer things with no logos. I think they just present a cleaner, more polished brand. They're a bit more timeless. As far as specific brands go, I would say that probably 2 or 3 years ago, I was super hyped on what Abercrombie was doing. Still like some of what they're doing. I know it's crazy from 15 years ago when it was like the moose logo and everything was, but they were really, really trending in a great direction. I think they maybe bought a little bit of their own hype, and there's been a little bit of a decline in some of the quality there. But there, if you're shopping those labels, if you're finding good natural fibers in their pieces, they still have a great price to quality ratio there. Another one, this shirt jacket's actually from Madewell, which is J. Crew sister brand.
Mhm.
They have some awesome stuff. I really still think J. Crew does a good job of hitting that middle price point. They have a lot of really classic, timeless styles. Again, I think it's important to check those labels, things that are 100% cotton, high contents of wool or cashmere. Those are the things that are going to last a long time, be really timeless. And then on the higher end of things, on the more casual side, I think that Buck Mason is doing some really, really awesome stuff. It's a fairly new brand out of California, but they are super intentional about the clothing that they make. They do a ton of going back into the archives. They literally, in their stores, will have like archival pieces hanging up on the walls that they have modeled a lot of their new items after. They just bought a what's the like a factory in Pennsylvania so that they could be making a lot of their t-shirts and things in the United States still. And so they really just seem to be a brand that's committed to doing things here in the United States, or doing things the way that they used to be done. With that comes a price tag. Like I think this t-shirt's from them and it's like $55 for a basic white t-shirt. And then, a knit might be $200 for a cotton sweater versus $50 at Abercrombie, and their things never go on sale, but they are the pieces that when I get a piece from them that fits well and is, I really like, I just find myself reaching for it over and over and over again because they're comfortable, they fit well, they seem to last really well. And so that would be another one. And then the other one that I would say is always a good option for just basic pieces is actually Suit Supply. They
Yes.
again use a lot of 100% natural materials. And again, it's a little bit higher in price point, but if you're going for more of a refined, maybe true business casual look, I think that they are a great option if you're looking to kind of spend a little bit more for something that's quality and is going to last a really long time.
Man, you said you triggered so many thoughts there. First of
Yeah.
all, my daughters they're about to be this year, they're 23 and 24, about to turn 24 and 25. They're only 15 months apart. They have dug through my closet. And I have pieces from J. Crew and Abercrombie from the 90s, back when
Yeah.
to me, and when describe to them Abercrombie from the 90s, they're like blown away. Back whenever you'd walk in and it wasn't the smell of fierce cologne, but it was the smell of woods by Abercrombie. So much
Okay.
more rustic, and the clothes were like harkening back to the old school. Like I've got a set of steak knives that are stag they're stag handled steak knives from the original Abercrombie store in New York from back in the day. So
That's awesome.
my daughters didn't even know that that was a thing, and so when I was shopping in college at Abercrombie, it was still that heavy, woven cottons, and I mean, their
Yeah,
khakis were just stupid. They were like Bill's khakis or something, just really just great, well made. They were probably double RL, quality versus
yeah.
Polo Ralph Lauren, and that was just kind of their staple. And so my daughters have found some of those pieces. As a matter of fact, I guess it was right before Christmas, my oldest daughter came in and she found my old LL Bean barn jacket.
Oh,
She's
yeah.
alre she's like, "Dad," she said, "Do you happen to have," and this made me feel really cool. She said, "Do you happen to have a, what's called a barn coat or a barn jacket?" I said, "Not only do I have one, but I have the original, the LL Bean." And I gave her that. She thought I was the coolest guy in the world. And then I also just happened to have an old vintage Ralph Lauren. It was kind of that, it's that the canvas material with the corduroy collar. So it looked kind of like a barn coat, but it was a little shorter
Yeah,
waisted, but oversized, much bigger than what you would find now. And she just thought that was the coolest thing in the world. And again, had it
totally.
from college. I still to this day, you mentioned J. Crew. To this day, today, as a matter of fact, I pulled them out to wear. I'm wearing some J. Crew. They would call them the J. Crew jump boot or paratrooper boot. It's like a little, just a basic hiking boot that was with weathered leather that I have had since I was in college. I still have my favorite belt is a J. Crew called the Pilgrim belt. It's this dark brown basic belt with a really just a square buckle that I love. So yeah, used to be able to buy stuff like that at those everyday places and they'd last forever. Buck Mason, I'm glad you told me that because yesterday I was over at North Park in Dallas and I went by the Buck Mason store and I thought about going in. I've never explored them. Now I will. I'm glad you
Okay,
told me that.
they they have a phenomenal in-store experience as well. You'll walk
Awesome.
in and they will like it they everything is super curated. They have a really great scent that they have, like, I don't know if it's burning or whatever in their store. They'll bring you a nice glass water bottle. It
Okay.
is they are I think they're doing things in a really classic and unique way. And I think their clothes often are really, really good and kind of up to that standard as well. So even if you're like, oh, it's not really my style or whatever, I think it's worth going in just for the in-store experience because it's unique and it's something that I think has been lost, obviously, in the age of online shopping and all of that. And so it's nice to go in somewhere and be like, man, someone was really thoughtful about the spaces that they create. My understanding is that their owners, who still are there's two guys who still are the sole owners of the business. My understanding is that last I heard, they still do all of the real estate for the business as well. And so they pick really intentional spaces. Obviously, if it's at more of a shopping mall or something, they'll still kind of create that space to have a similar vibe. But it's really just worth going in and kind of checking out the experience because it is neat.
Fantastic. And it doesn't surprise me because North Park Mall is the only mall I will set foot in because it's not a normal mall. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like Dior and really good Faraday. I mean, like the casual brands are really cool. And then it's in North Dallas and it's an institution over there. So
Cool.
if you're not shopping at Highland Park Village, you're shopping at North Park. And so
Sure.
I will definitely take a look in there. Then also you mentioned J. Crew. So yesterday I found this jacket and I have a bad jacket problem, David, I'll tell you. My wife, last night, she finally said something for the first time. She's like, "Your jacket issue is out of control." But dude, they got me. It was this all wool coat that looks like a pea coat and a field jacket, had a baby, and all wool, and they gave me the extra 60% off. I just couldn't refuse, and
Was
I
it
was
their
like,
like cruiser jacket?
well, it's like, okay, it's like a little bit below waist length. It has 4 pockets up
Yeah,
top,
yeah,
and I
yeah.
don't know if yeah, have you seen that thing?
Yeah.
It's like
So
and it's like a
Filson,
go
I think, was the original.
yes.
Filson has a jacket called the cruiser jacket that has it's
Yes.
those four pockets, and
Yep.
it's awesome. That's like such a classic style.
Oh, it's fantastic. I paid 95 bucks for it. I
I
mean, come
know.
on.
And
I
that is
like
the
I
thing with J. Crew that I do like is, some of these places, Buck Mason, Suit Supply, you'll never find their stuff on sale.
no.
And
No.
if you are a bargain shopper, J. Crew, Banana Republic, some of those places, which I think are really trending in the right direction again,
Mhm.
still do have some items on sale from time to time, so you can feel like you're getting good value. Banana Republic's another one that I would mention. Like you mentioned with your daughters, these brands started out 100 years ago doing mostly like outdoors wear. It was
Mhm.
things like Banana Republic was a big, like, they did safari gear and things
Yep.
like that. And I have loved, and it's a big trend obviously amongst brands right now, but seeing them going back to the things that they were making 150, 25 years ago, and looking at those items and taking inspiration from them and creating them in kind of a modern context is super fun. If you aren't someone, I think there's obviously also been a big vintage push lately as far as
Mhm.
shopping secondhand, things like that, which is great for sustainability. But someone like me, like I said, where I live isn't a fashion hub. I go to the thrift store, and it is not worth my time. And
Right.
honestly, I don't have a ton of time to be scouring eBay all day or doing things like that. And so, as much as I would love to buy a lot more vintage than I do, I think that seeing some of these more vintage inspired pieces is a really great. It's a great option for guys who still want to be buying quality things or things that have some history or interest to them, but don't maybe have the time to scour the racks.
100%. And I love to see that. I love finding those things. And you mentioned, I want to go ahead and say a little bit more about Suit Supply. So I discovered Suit Supply. It's probably been about a decade ago. And
Okay.
again, for the listener out there, if you don't want to go have a custom suit made that's going to run you, moderate couple grand to up to, gosh, I was looking at Brioni's not too long ago. Not that I was going to buy one. I was just curious. And back in the day, you used to could get a Brioni, custom made, or even off the rack for, around 4 grand or something. Now they're up to off the rack $8,000. I'm like, that's just insane. Most of the
That's
people listening
crazy.
to this would never do that, and you shouldn't do that unless that's whatever that's your deal. But Suit Supply for off the rack clothing is some of the best stuff out there.
Yeah.
And I'm glad to hear you mention them because a lot of the folks that I look to whenever I'm going to buy something new and that I like to find out what brands are doing good things. Suit Supply keeps coming up again and again. I think they have mastered almost better than anybody quality at scale at that,
Yeah.
kind of that level. And I would say if someone told me, I want to go to Bruno Cucinelli or Loro, and I can't because I've been watching Succession and I want to dress like Kendall, but I just can't really afford it. I'd say, well, you
Yeah.
probably need to go to Suit Supply because
100.
you're not going to pay anywhere near those prices, and you're going to get some quality. You're not buying the fast fashion stuff
Yeah.
like Mango or Zara or something like that. You're going to be buying a little bit better quality, so you can feel good about it. And so, yeah, Suit Supply, I have really come to. As a matter of fact, when I don't buy stuff from Harley's that I mentioned to you, that's always my alternate go-to.
Yeah.
If it's a piece that I just don't think is worth that premium investment, then I'll take it down a notch. I'll go to Suit Supply and I'll try to find as comparable of a piece as I can.
Totally.
Yeah. Okay. So l- you just went to London over Christmas.
We did.
I'm about to head to Europe. And I think that's one of the things, like, dude, another thing I have, like, some people like cat videos. I like watching videos like yours showing cool outfits. And I also love packing videos.
Oh,
I'm obsessed with the packing videos.
yeah.
My wife laughs at me when we did a Europe tour a couple years ago. And dude, I mean, for like 3 months, I was watching every packing video there was out there. Like, I always want to have the perfect set of luggage and I want to get just a perfect amount. And the funny thing is, I ended up doing it so bad. I carried so much more than I needed on that
Oh,
trip.
yeah. Yep.
But we're about to go next month back to Europe, and so I want to be perfectly packed. Tell me how you, someone who has obviously an amazing wardrobe, how did you prepare for your Christmas trip to London? Because you had a double whammy. One, you're going overseas. Two, it's winter,
Yep.
which is a tricky time to travel because you have to pack bulky stuff. How did you leverage your your collection of clothing to get only those pieces? And by the way, you're an Instagram dude, you're a social media guy, you're a blogger, so you've got to make sure you look well because you're going to be in front of Big Ben and
Yeah.
Parliament, and you have all these cool places to get content. How did you prepare for that, and how can people listening to this when they're about to travel get the most bang for their buck on their packing?
Totally. I am going to be some of a hypocrite here because I am a certified overpacker, 100%. But I think I'm probably better at telling people how to do it than I am for myself. Obviously, what you alluded to was there is a component for me where especially the trip to London, I tried to be a little bit more efficient because it was really for family time and less for work. And so I was like, you know what, I can't justify, but we have trips where we'll go for 3 or 4 days with the intention of like shooting a lot of content while we're there. And it's like a 3 day trip, and I've got 2 full suitcases ready to go, But um, I think that there's a few things, especially when you're going somewhere in Europe. The first is I see a lot of people hoping to fit in, and at the end of the day, you won't. And that is, as Americans, I hate to admit it, but we tried our very best the first time we ever went over there. We walked into a store in Paris, and we would say like, bonjour, and they would be like, hello. They
Yeah.
just
Mhm.
they know who you are. And so don't get caught up with this like stress for yourself of like, oh, I need to look like this chic Parisian or chic, person who's from London, because at the end of the day, we stick out like a sore thumb over there. And so you can remove that pressure from yourself for starters. But and so I would say that within that, as you're thinking about investing in items or things that you want to take with you on the trip, don't pick anything that is too specific to the place that you're going, and pick things that are going to fit into your wardrobe when you get home as well. And so if you do want to buy new pieces, that's great, but make sure it's something that you're going to wear more than just the 1 week or 2 weeks that you're in this foreign place, and make sure that they're things that incorporate well into your wardrobe when you get home, because I think that that's just super important. The other part of it that I would say as far as packing goes is plan in advance. Like when I know I have limited space to pack, I will literally spend a day or 3 hours or whatever before we leave putting on the outfit, take a picture of myself in the mirror, and I write over the top of it Monday, or whatever you need to do, so that,
Smart.
because the last thing that you want to do when you're on a trip is be sitting there toiling over your outfit when you got a tour, you got a reservation or something like that coming up. And so instead, if you have a plan, you just pull out your phone, you're like, go to the folder that's like Europe fits, and it's like, oh, Monday, this is what I'm wearing. You've got that plan already in place. And so it's really nice and simple. And then I think circling back to what we talked to earlier about building a capsule wardrobe, this is one of my favorite times to do it, is to build one out of my own closet for a specific trip. And so,
Mm.
number one thing that I do is try to pick a color palette for that trip, so that it's really, really easy. And so, one that I go to a lot is navy, white, cream, light blue. That's a really easy one that always, always, always looks good together, no matter how many pieces that you're incorporating. And if you bring a bunch of those pieces with you, then again, there's that mix and match potential. Maybe you'll be able to wear, I always wear like a t-shirt underneath my sweaters, so that I could wear a sweater 5 days while we're there, if we're there for 2 weeks, and wouldn't bat an eye. It's not going to start to smell bad, things like that. And so picking those versatile pieces that go with a variety of what you're wearing is super important. Another thing that you mentioned with being gone over Christmas in the wintertime is I always try to wear my biggest coat on the plane. And it is a bit of a nuisance, but you can just stuff it up in the overhead compartment or underneath the seat in front of you. That's going to save you a ton of packing space, so that you're not fighting, oh man, the weight limit, or how do I get this all to fit into this thing. And so that's another place that I tried to do that. The other thing that I have used off and on is like those packing cubes, which I'm sure if you've talked,
Mhm.
see the packing videos, that you're familiar with those. But I do love those. What I've run into is that I can pack my suitcase too densely and too heavy when I use the packing cubes. So you do have to be a little bit mindful of that. If you're like, flying first class and you have up to 70 pounds or something like that, great tool to be able to just pack everything in nice and dense so that you fill that space really efficiently. But you have to be careful if you have that 50-pound limit with a big suitcase. If you pack them into those packing cubes, it'll weigh 60 pounds before you know it. And you're out of luck. And so, yeah, so I would say building that capsule wardrobe, making sure that you can wear the pieces a variety of times, so that it's not, you pack an entire 3-pound sweater to wear it once and never look at it again. Those are kind of the biggest cues. And then planning in advance so that you're not just showing up without a plan with a huge suitcase of stuff that doesn't actually go together.
All such good advice, and all exactly what I did that last trip. I took all the packing cubes and stuffed them. I rolled stuff and stuffed
Yeah.
them in, and dude, everything was so heavy. And
Yeah.
another thing that we do, I don't know if you guys do this, but you know, Jemlin and I, when we travel, of course, we had one of our daughters with us the last time, but we don't. If we're going to Europe, we don't check bags.
Oh,
We we do all carry on just because we know we're gonna, especially if we're gonna be taking trains, planes, trains,
Yeah,
and automobiles. We're like, you know what? Just suck it up, figure it out. We're gonna do the carry on,
yeah,
and which is pretty amazing for my wife considering how many shoes she brings and everything. I mean, it's pretty impressive how much she can get into that. So well, that's good. That's all very good advice. And like, I was thinking today when pulled out this sweater we were talking about earlier, I was like, I'd kind of like to take this with me, but there's no way I will because I mean, if I took it for one thing, it's gonna be apparent exactly what I'm wearing multiple days because I'd have to wear it multiple days.
sure.
And two, it's just, yeah, it's not neutral enough to really have fun with. I tell you another thing that Jim and I, we always say we're going to do this and we never do. We're in New York all the time because our youngest daughter lives there and we just love to go to New York. And
Yeah,
we always say that we're going to take a suitcase, one outfit short for dinner and buy it while we're there.
yeah,
And I haven't done it yet, but I think this might be the trip that I actually put that into practice where, because I'll also say this for those of you listening that just are like, I don't want to buy clothes or whatever. This is something I've started doing too, David, as I've gotten older, is I don't care about souvenirs. I don't collect things. I'm just not, I don't have no hobbies or anything. But what I've learned to do, I do love clothes though.
yeah,
So the last time we were in Europe, I always buy something when we're there. But what I really started to kind of be more intentional about is a piece of clothing from a trip is my souvenir.
yep,
And I learned that the first time Jimlin and I went to Paris together, is like I still have a blazer or something I bought, and every time I wear it, it's nothing that great. It's not exceptional, but I bought it in Paris
I
on our
totally
honeymoon.
agree.
That can be clothes can be a cool souvenir.
Yeah, I think there is a. I was telling Carly we were when we were traveling recently. There's a genre of guy who wears whatever T-shirt that they bought at their previous vacations. That's
Yeah.
like their vacation wardrobe. Is like you're in Hawaii and they've got their Disney World shirt and their Oregon Coast shirt and whatever. And while I think that's maybe extreme, if that's you, it's fun, go for it. But I totally agree that it is fun to buy an item that maybe you already had your eye on, maybe you didn't. But purchasing it somewhere specific is that memory is always tied to it. I know there's people who will do that with things like watches or handbags or a variety of different things. That when I've already spent $5,000 on the vacation, to spend another couple thousand on a watch or whatever is outside of my price point. But doing something like that with a shirt or a jacket or a pair of pants that you've kind of had your eye on will always tie that little extra memory to it in a fun way.
And it brings up something that we talked about a little bit earlier is that the cool thing about clothes is they do reflect or can ignite a feeling. I think people take that for granted. I mean, and they felt it before, they just didn't pay much attention to it. It's like when you are dressed really well, and again, doesn't mean that you're in a Ralph Lauren purple label suit. You're just wearing something that fits well. You're comfortable in it. It feels good. Maybe somebody compliments you for the way you look. It's a game changer, man.
Yeah.
And I think that, and again, like there's something about like wearing something that links to that memory. It brings up a feeling. And I think there's just things that, I will say, Miranda Priestley, no, it wasn't Miranda. What was his name? Lionel on Devil Wears Prada,
Oh,
the Stanley Tucci's character. He's talking about, he's making, a little bit of a verbose case for, clothing or in fashion, but he does say it's better than art because you live your life in it. And that's one of
mm,
the things that I think a lot of people, especially dudes, take for granted. Is like, okay, I get it. You don't care about what you wear, you don't care about clothes, but you are kind of living your life in it. So maybe at least think about it a little bit more and it will make a difference.
totally.
Yeah. All right. Now I want to talk about before I let you go, because I know that another thing that you and I share in common is health and wellness. Because I've watched some of your content that goes beyond the fashion. And by the way, everyone, you should subscribe to David's channels. I'll get you before we let you go. I want you to tell everybody where they can follow you because you've just got good content on nutrition and basically lifestyle. Physical training. I'm the co-founder and CEO also of a nutraceutical company with a couple of physicians, and so I'm very big. Health and wellness is the closest thing I have to a hobby. So tell me about kind of the things that you do outside of, fashion to keep yourself in peak condition. What are you doing there that this audience could like pick up some tips to like, oh, I might try that? What are some things that you do to be mindful of that?
Totally. I think that of all the things, I started posting about fashion content about 2 years ago, and I've loved it. I don't know that I ever anticipated that I would be where I am with it now. And if you had asked me 2 years ago if I was more passionate about clothing or fitness, I probably would have told you fitness. And
Hmm.
ultimately, it was a crowded space, and I don't have I'm not Mr. Olympia by any means. I'm just kind of a normal guy who tries to stay healthy and fit. But it's still something that I've tried to incorporate more into my content because it's just something that I like. And talking about clothes 365 days a year can be a lot. And so getting to incorporate more of who I am as a person is really fun as well. As far as that goes, I grew up playing golf. That was kind of my thing from about the age of 10 until I graduated from college. I was a competitive golfer. And so that was kind of my life and I loved it. But I always had this desire. I grew up in the era of golf where it was like golfers can't lift weights because it messes with your swing.
Hmm.
And in hindsight, that was wildly false and a huge bummer. And I actually had like some back pain and things like that I think could have been resolved if I had taken care of my body differently. But pretty much the moment that I graduated from college, I had my eye on trying out CrossFit as my method of fitness. And I had been kind of a jump on the Stairmaster for an hour and just like try to burn as many calories as possible guy when I was a bit younger. And so that was really the first step for me into something that changed my life, which was weight training. And I think that there's just more and more, especially over maybe the last 10 years, that has come out about how important strength training is to our lives as humans and our longevity and all of that. And so that is one of the most important things in my life. I would say kind of my faith, my family, and then fitness are kind of three of the most important cornerstones of who I am as a person. And then obviously fashion, as far as another hobby of mine that has kind of turned into my job. But that's something that I love, and I kind of agree with you that my health and wellness is probably my biggest hobby as far as what I do truly just for fun. But CrossFit was a great introduction to that because it's in an environment where there's someone there to kind of help you. Walking into a giant gym with huge dudes who are down there doing bicep curls is really intimidating if you've never done anything like that. And CrossFit kind of gets a bad rap for being really intense, but at the end of the day, it's super scalable. It's easy to jump into, and there's someone there to kind of hold your hand along the way. And so I've been doing that for 7 years. It has been the kind of foundation of my training, and then I've found other things within that I do enjoy and kind of add in. But that is a huge part of my life, and then alongside that just comes trying to be a healthy person. Probably 5 years ago, I started tracking like the macronutrients that I was eating, and I always kind of struggled with, I guess, just for lack of a better term, like some level of like binge eating. And just like I would be really, really disciplined and strict. And then one weekend I would just eat everything that could possibly be in sight. And that was not the best version of myself. And so I found that like being a bit more regimented with what I eat and just staying level all the time is a much healthier version of myself. And so for a while, that was really focused on calories in, calories out. And over the last couple of years, I've really tried to focus on, man, what's going to make me like a healthy person from the inside out. And so I still do track a lot of my food, make sure I'm consuming a lot of protein because I think that that's kind of the building block of muscle and all the things that are really important in our body. But then also kind of fighting to get some of those good micronutrients as well through fruits and vegetables and good healthy fats, things like that. And so really just try to kind of like I do in fashion, keep things simple, keep a nice balanced approach, make sure that you're doing the things without going too crazy one way or the other, but the things that are sustainable, that are going to work for the next 10, 20 years of my life so that I'm not always jumping from one fad diet to the next, and making sure that I'm doing the things that will hopefully help me be a good husband, a good father for the next, 50 years of my life.
Which, by the way, remind me, have you guys had your baby yet? Or are you still expecting?
We're due in May.
Due
So
in
we're
May.
yep, so we
Okay.
got a big life change coming in May, and we're super excited for it.
All right, well, here's what I want you to do. Here's a shameless plug. So my wife and I own, but my wife has built it over the last 14 years by the sweat of her brow. We have what has essentially become a Tyler institution. It's the largest children's boutique, probably of its kind in the state of Texas, which, as you can imagine, is saying a lot. And so I want you to make sure that offline, whenever the baby comes, and you know the gender and what the initials are going to be, you send that to me, and a gift from Hot Tots will await you. So we'll start this little one's life of fashion off
Love
properly.
it. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's very kind.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to do it, and Gemma, she'll be excited to be able to do that. And so, all right, well, very good. Well, David, I think we've covered a lot, man. I mean, I wanted, maybe we'll get you back on here sometime. I would like to talk about just at some point, the entrepreneurial
Yeah,
venture that you've kind of gone, how this started, what made you decide to do it, and then when did you decide to really lean in and turn it into a vocation? I think that's a great story in and of itself. So maybe that can be a part two. I want to
would
respect
love
your
to.
time, but tell people how they get in touch with you, how they sign up for your newsletter, how they, the best way to follow you again for just life hacks on nutrition, sleep, exercise, some of the things you're doing, but also those dudes that need to upgrade their look. Where do they find you?
Totally. It's at david.james.elliott, and that's with two L's and two T's on Instagram and TikTok for as long as TikTok stays around. And then my website is davidelliottstyle.com. And so that's where you can kind of check out some of my blog content. I've been a little slacking on the blog lately, but I'm hoping to get back to that soon. But then also my newsletter and some of that more information on that side as well.
Fantastic. Brother, thank you so much for being on the show. Guys, I'm telling you, go check out his content. It's so approachable. I think that's the best word for what you do, man. It's
Yeah.
it's very approachable. It's there for everybody. And there's some dudes that could make just enormous upgrades if they just follow some of your tips. So, David, thanks for being on the show, man. So cool to meet you. And I hope it's not the last time we speak.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Jason. We would love to come back at some point.
All right, brother. Thanks. Well, that does it for this episode of The Jason Wright Show. Thank you so much for listening. This has been a Texas Titan Media production. Fourth Wall did the music. And as always, thank you so much for listening. Please consider going out to jasonwrightnow.com and signing up for the Vitruvian letter. Also, please go out to iTunes. It takes like 30 seconds to just leave us a 5-star rating. It does wonders for the podcast. I would be so grateful. And with that, until we meet again, go crush it and endeavor to improve always in all ways. I'm out.